In a faraway kingdom, nestled between towering mountains and dense forests, there lived a young boy named Elian. He was 16 years old, with a heart full of dreams and a mind full of wonder. His life was simple and peaceful, but there was always something in him that yearned for adventure. His small village, located at the edge of a vast, ancient forest, had been a quiet place, a remnant of a time long past. The kingdom it belonged to had once flourished, but now it was a shadow of its former glory. Dragons, once revered and feared by all, had been hunted to extinction many years ago by the very people who once shared the land with them. Now, all that remained of these majestic creatures were stories, tales whispered by old men, told around campfires, and passed down through generations. Elian had always been captivated by those stories. He had heard them countless times, the fire-breathing beasts, the great battles between dragons and humans, the legends of ancient creatures that roamed the skies, untouchable and mighty. But those stories were fading, growing dimmer with each passing year, until they were little more than myths. The people of the kingdom had long since forgotten the dragons, believing them to be nothing but fantasy. But Elian never believed that. He couldn't. Deep in his heart, he felt that something remained, something alive. There had to be something more to the old tales, something the world had forgotten. One day, while the villagers worked in the fields, Elian felt an inexplicable urge to venture into the forest. It was a place he had wandered through many times before, but this time, something was different. The air was thick with an unexplainable energy, a sense of anticipation that he couldn't shake. He had always been drawn to the forest's mysteries, but today, it seemed to be calling him. As Elian walked deeper into the woods, the sky above began to darken, and the earth beneath his feet became soft and damp. The wind whispered through the trees, as if the forest itself was alive, watching him. He paused for a moment, his heart pounding in his chest, sensing something just beyond his reach. He turned to look at an ancient willow tree whose gnarled branches twisted and reached toward the sky like bony fingers. In the shadows, hidden beneath layers of vines and moss, Elian saw something unusual, a faint glimmer of light. It was the entrance to a cave, half covered by thick, tangled growth. As he approached, he felt a strange stillness fall over the forest. The air grew heavier, charged with an undeniable presence. Elian hesitated, unsure of what he was about to discover. But curiosity pushed him forward. He stepped closer to the cave's entrance, his eyes straining to see what lay within. As his gaze adjusted to the darkness, he caught a glimpse of two glowing eyes staring back at him from the depths of the cave. His breath caught in his throat, and for a moment, he couldn't move. Those eyes, they weren't human. They were too old, too ancient, and they held a wisdom Elian could not comprehend. He stepped forward, trembling slightly, his hand outstretched as if he could feel the creature's presence. Slowly, a massive shape emerged from the shadows. It was a dragon, a great, majestic creature, its scales black as midnight, gleaming with a faint, ethereal glow. Its wings, folded tightly against its body, looked like they could cover the entire sky, and its tail swished gently, sending ripples through the cave's entrance. Elian stood in awe. His heart raced with excitement, and yet, there was no fear. The dragon didn't seem threatening. It gazed at him with those wise, ancient eyes, its gaze almost curious. For a long time, they simply stared at each other, as if trying to understand one another. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Elian took a step closer. He was drawn to the creature in a way he couldn't explain, as if fate had led him here. The dragon, despite its fearsome appearance, made no move to harm him. Instead, it lowered its massive head, allowing Elian to approach. For the following days, Elian returned to the cave, bringing food and water for the dragon, although it seemed to need little. The dragon's name, Elian eventually learned through a silent connection, was Azarath. He was the last of his kind, the last dragon to survive after humanity had waged war against the dragons centuries ago. Azarath had retreated deep into the mountains, hiding from the world, waiting for the end of his kind. But now, with Elian's discovery, he felt the stirrings of hope. Perhaps there was still a place for dragons in this world. As Elian spent more time with Azarath, he learned that the dragon was more than just a beast of legend. Azarath could speak, not with words, but through thoughts and emotions. He shared with Elian the history of his people, their wisdom, their magic, and their connection to the land. Elian realized that the dragons were not simply creatures of destruction as the stories had told, but ancient beings of great power, capable of incredible feats of magic and knowledge. Azarath spoke of a time when dragons and humans lived in harmony, when the world was a place of balance. But that balance had been shattered. The humans, fearful of the dragon's power, had waged war to eliminate them. Azarath and his kin had fought bravely, but in the end, the dragons were overwhelmed. Now, Elian was the only one who knew the truth, the last remaining dragon, hiding in the shadow of the world, waiting for a time that might never come. But danger was coming. Elian knew that the rulers of the kingdom, led by a tyrannical king, had long suspected that there might still be dragons hidden in the world. The king believed that the dragons were the source of ancient magic, and he sought to control that magic to dominate the world. His soldiers had already begun searching the lands for any sign of the mythical creatures, and once they discovered Azarath, they would stop at nothing to destroy him. Elian had no choice. He couldn't let them find Azarath. Together, they began to plan their escape, hoping to reach a hidden valley deep within the mountains where no one would find them. But the king's soldiers were relentless, and every day, the danger grew closer. After several days of traveling through dense forests and treacherous mountain passes, Elian and Azarath finally reached the valley, a place untouched by human hands for centuries. It was here, in this remote corner of the world, that Azarath could finally rest, safe from the king's tyranny. The king, furious at his failure to capture the last dragon, sent his armies to search for Elian and Azarath. But by the time they reached the valley, the dragon and the boy were already gone, hidden from the world's gaze. Elian had kept his promise to protect the dragon, and in doing so, he had ensured that the ancient creatures would not be forgotten. Years passed, and Elian grew into a man. He remained in the valley, where he cared for Azarath and kept the secrets of the dragon safe. As time went on, the world began to forget the dragons altogether, and the people of the kingdom moved on with their lives, no longer fearing the creatures that had once ruled the skies. But Elian never forgot. He kept the memories of Azarath and the dragons alive, teaching the next generation of the forgotten magic and wisdom that had been passed down through the ages. When the time came for Azarath to leave the world, Elian knew that he had fulfilled his purpose. The last dragon was gone, but his legacy would live on through Elian. And so, the last dragon story became a legend once more, a story that would be whispered around campfires for generations to come, a story of a boy and a dragon, and of the bond that defied time and the world's greatest fears.